Hello and welcome to Profiles in Risk. This is your host, Tony Cañas, and today I have with me Sandeep Haridas, EVP Business Head. Okay. Note to editing, Tony. Today I have with me Sandeep Haridas, Chief Strategy Officer at IntellectAI. Sandeep, thank you for joining me today. How's it going?
It's going great, Tony. Thank you so much for making me a part of this conversation.
My pleasure. Thank you for coming on the show today. And according to LinkedIn, you are, like myself, a fellow Atlantan.
I am for the past 2 years. Yeah.
Fantastic. We've done like 5 years in Atlanta now. Right now, I'm in Spain, heading back to Atlanta tomorrow.
Okay.
But the last couple of days before I came to Spain a week ago, weather much better in Atlanta, like getting so nice compared to the summer, finally.
It is.
So we're recording in early September, just past Labor Day. So how's Atlanta treating you?
It is treating me exactly the way I hoped it would treat me. After 17 years of harsh winters in New England, we were so ready.
It's oh yes, it's a different world compared to New
Yeah,
England. Absolutely.
it's just
Yes.
incredible. Yeah. So right now it's 79 here, and it's sunny and nice and breezy and beautiful, beautiful weather. But
Perfect.
I still remember the day that we were supposed to list our house in Boston. That weekend, it snowed like 18, 20 inches, and we were like, "This is if we hadn't had enough queue to get out of here, this is our
Uh-huh.
final queue to get out of here." So
Perfect.
don't.
Perfect. All right. So we always give the guest a chance to give the elevator pitch. What is IntellectAI?
So IntellectAI is the insurance technology and the wealth technology uh, part of Intellect Design Arena. Intellect Design Arena is a Chennai, India-based BFSI product company that has been in existence for the past 31 years. It is an organization that focuses entirely on building world-class products for banks, wealth management organizations, and insurance companies. And we have presence in over 57 countries, more than 6,000 associates around the world, more than 325 customers. Every continent that we work with 70 to 70% of the largest financial institutions on that continent. And so that is the level of sophistication and scale that we bring to insurance as well. So IntellectAI is the wealth tech and the insure tech product company, or the product department inside Intellect Design.
Okay. So within the insurance space, which is what our listeners are, what type of work do you guys do?
So we carry the same passion for underwriting products, right? So within the insurance space, we are a very niche player that really focuses on truly creating an underwriting ecosystem, and we'll cover what that underwriting ecosystem means in a few minutes. But that is who we are. We work in the commercial insurance space, have little to offer in the personal line space. We are devoted and dedicated to the art and science of underwriting, specialty, property casualty, E&S. Reinsurance is where we live and where we work, and most of us who work in this organization come from those similar backgrounds.
Okay, you reminded me of my first interview for the underwriting side. So I was working claims. I had just finished my CPCU, and I was at Nationwide Insurance, and interviewed with commercial for a commercial underwriting role. And I remember the hiring manager saying that commercial is almost as much an art as it is a science. Well, personal lines is much more a science. And
Yes.
at the time, I was a bit confused, but uh, having been an underwriter for a few years, I agree. Commercial is a very malleable side of insurance. Every risk is different, and especially once you get into middle market, the more and more and more that there's a lot of customization. And then I never worked the NS. If you guys play in the NS space, now you've got a ton of customization. So I like what you described to it, how you guys are focused on truly creating an underwriting ecosystem.
Mhm.
Why an ecosystem?
Yeah, because that's never been asked that question. It's a brilliant question. Um, the reason is because without one of the components of the ecosystem cannot thrive. That is our firm belief, right? So if you look at a marine ecosystem, right, you have fishes and you have corals and you have all the organisms, and there's this whole balance of things that goes on where one organism in some way contributes some value to another organism, and that is how the whole ecosystem thrives, as long as humans don't interfere, right, or the outside influences don't interfere. But that is that perfect balance of that ecosystem where every element has, or every organism has, a role to play. So similarly, in an underwriting ecosystem, if you were to build a world-class underwriting workbench, really the best, right? It has amazing user experiences. It allows the underwriters to do everything that they want to do in their health decision support like nobody's business, helps you drive profitability in your book by helping you understand what is better about this risk and what is not good about another risk. All that is great, but if you're spending 9 hours a day doing data entry into that workbench, that missing element, which was submission ingestion, right? If that was missing, you still don't get the full benefits of that amazing workbench. You might have spent hundreds of millions of dollars into building an underwriting workbench, one of the most sophisticated, but without submission ingestion, it doesn't work. Similarly, if you had the best AI on the planet to read every single document and extract every single data element, if you don't have a good spot to put that data into, so that the work can actually be executed in an underwriting workbench, then what's the point of investing so much in that submission ingestion space? And if you had both of these components, but you didn't have third-party data, so you understand what the broker or the agent is saying about the risk, but you have no idea what the world is saying about this risk, it still is missing a dimension that you would then have to spend hours doing Google searches and collecting the data that you need from all the third-party data sources, right? So all of these pieces have to come together. And then lastly, let's not forget the policy admin system, right? So if you don't have a way to rate and price these policies and then generate the proposals, the underwriters' work is really crippled and they can't really truly be effective, and that is what we are aiming for. We're aiming for that underwriter effectiveness. We want the underwriter to look like a superhero in front of their brokers and in front of their agents and in front of their managers within the organization. So how do you make that underwriter the superhero of the story? By creating an ecosystem around them that truly uses them for what they've been hired to do, which is making good decisions. And unfortunately, I was an underwriter, right? So I've done my fair share of underwriting myself, and I've realized that without the support of your peers and the support of an ecosystem like this, a technology ecosystem, it is very difficult to win in today's competitive marketplace.
Hey, helping the underwriting look like a superhero. All
That's
right.
what we're doing. Yeah.
So is it modular? Can we basically choose the pieces that we want to add to what we have right now?
Absolutely can, right? So you can go inside the submission ingestion system and just do the submission ingestion piece. And within that, you could say, I only need something that can help me with my loss runs. And within that, you can say, I only need something that helps me with my workers' comp loss runs, or it helps me with my E&O loss runs. But then you could say, well, where am I going to put that loss run data, right? Where am I going to put the historical claim data? All right, so I just need the claims analysis component of the underwriting workbench so that I can have an automated way to read the loss runs and then depict that information in one component that paints the severity versus frequency type of detection that I need to do, helps me understand causes of loss, gives me summaries, gives me categorization of my losses, which is just one component of the more than 97 components that we have put together in the underwriting workbench. So you could just pick that one thing and compare it with that one thing in the submission ingestion platform and combine it to create a simple solution to help your underwriters on day one.
97 components. Okay. Um, how 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 do you even how do you even go to market with that? Right, like most of what I think of as insurtechs, and you guys have been around for a long time, right? Are focused on one or two pieces of the overall pie, which makes it a lot easier to know who to go after and how to market that. Were you guys playing kind of anywhere in the underwriting space? You've got a complicated job.
We do it is made easier with something that we hold very central and very core to who we are as intellect design. The reason why the company is called intellect design, and the word design for us is the design thinking aspect of how we do things, right? And and a critical part of design thinking is what we call first principles thinking. And first principle thinking, there's a lot of good material out there that can help you learn about what first principles design or first principles thinking is. But really, it is a simple way of isolating the problems that you're trying to solve into simple categories. And first of all, doing away with any ego or any prior knowledge of I know how to solve a problem, right? And so when you think about underwriting workbenches for us, for example, we could have easily taken our fully built out property and casualty underwriting workbench, slapped the word ENS on it and said, hey, this also works for ENS, right? So now we just doubled our target or service addressable marketplace. We don't do stuff like that, right? For us, the fundamental nature of the business that is ENS, where you have a wholesaler who's asking you for who has a specific ask, right? I'm looking for E&O coverage for a nurses association, 5XS 45 million. That's the last piece of the puzzle that I have left. Who can give me a quote for $17,000? It's a very specific problem that the underwriter needs to solve. And to solve that problem, you don't need a 27-step process that you would need to put together a quote for a multi-line BOP or a multi-line package in the middle market business where you have a $350,000 or $400,000 quote with workers' comp, GL, auto, property, and marine, umbrella, and all the lines of business that you would do. You would need maybe a 27-step process to put together a quote because you're selling an ISO-based product, you're selling a file product, you have to stay within the guardrails, you have to stay within the appetite and the guidelines that you've been given, but you have a little bit more flexibility in what you're doing in the ENS space. So how can your technology be exactly the same to solve these two very extremely distinct problems, right? Putting together a $400,000 quote for a package for a middle market plumbing organization that runs trucks in 17 states compared to a nurses association with 1,000 nurses looking for 5XS 45 million E&O coverage. Very, very different. And the price is set, right? $17,000. So all you have to do is evaluate the risk and say yes or no. And whoever says yes or no first wins. You don't win necessarily by giving out the quote on day one when you're trying to quote 11 lines of coverage like I used to do in public entity. So for us, that the first principles thinking is what allows us to focus on what are the essential components or the building blocks of what goes into solving a problem. And no carrier, no MGA, no broker that we've spoken with is trying to solve only one problem. Who who's solving only one problem, right? Who says, oh, I just need to focus on my profitability. Even that statement, I need to improve my profitability, has two components to it, right? There's the loss ratio part and there's the expense ratio part, right? And you're trying to, even combined ratio is called combined because it has multiple elements going into that. In your expenses space, you have your claims handling expenses, your underwriting expenses, your distribution expenses. There are so many different expenses that go. So there isn't a single lever that can be pulled to solve a carrier's or an MGA's or a broker's growth issue versus profitability issue versus talent retention issues versus reserving issues. Whatever they're trying to solve, it's never one. So how can 1 or 10 or 15 or 20 components help you with your solution? I think 97 is too few. We need a lot more.
Generally, when prospects come to you guys, are they looking to solve a specific set of problems, or does it vary a ton?
They vary a ton, right? But there are definitely general patterns. I wouldn't say, oh, they're completely out in the left field in some cases. They really aren't, right? We've seen a lot of growth, and some of these, we've gotten so good at it that we can almost predict what a client might be coming to us for. For example, in the property space, there's been a lot of softening, right? And luckily we are having amazing time so far, but we are getting into the peak of the hurricane season now. Like we are in September, we're getting to the peak of the hurricane season, but the property market has softened quite a bit. And so when we are looking at when we have a property prospect who is heavily into E&S property or even primary property, they are looking for growth because there is so much growth that is available, that is going to be available in that space. But when you're talking to someone who is heavy on GL, then they may not necessarily be looking for growth. They might be looking for profitability because the way the environment is right now, the GL is hardening, right? So how do you differentiate them? But at the same time, there are two general categories: someone's looking to grow, or someone is trying to not necessarily grow but turn profitable, right? And in those two buckets, you have the general themes of I want to keep my expenses low. I don't want to continue hiring more and more underwriters when talent is so difficult to find in the marketplace. How do I do more with the same? No one's coming to us and saying, how do I do more with less, right? Everyone's saying, how do I do more with the same? Or grow slightly in terms of my headcount or in terms of my expenses, but my top line has to grow a lot more. So there are consistent themes of what we are hearing from prospects, but it generally falls into the category of I want to reduce my expenses and or do better risk selection, grow my profitability, or I just need to grow because I'm working with capacity providers. My loss ratios have been in the 30%, 40%, and my capacity providers are now forcing me in a good way, forcing me to grow. That I have to grow and double my premium in the next 2 years. Otherwise, they're going to go somewhere else. So those are generally the two types of problems that we hear from our prospects.
The lowering loss ratios, everybody basically, the entire industry is facing that challenge right now. So yeah, that makes perfect sense. Looking at the website, there's a little bit of a mention of Gen AI for insurers. It seems that for the last 18 months, every interview I've done, all anybody wants to talk about is Gen AI. You haven't brought it up, so I'm actually interested. What are you guys doing when it comes to bringing Gen AI into the insurance?
Yeah, we probably might have to reshoot this whole episode because I should have mentioned Gen AI very early on. But I'm kidding. But for us, I think Gen AI has been a life changer. It really has changed us fundamentally from who we used to be to who we are now. Our submission ingestion product uses Gen AI to a very large extent for everything from classification of documents, individual pages, to extraction of information, to normalization. Gen AI is very fundamental to that ingestion product. We are also the unique nature of or the unique thing in our workbenches, not workbench, but workbenches is the ability to infuse what the industry calls expert AI agents, we have a tremendous advantage here at Intellect Design because we also have one of the industry's leading AI platform we call Purple Fabric. And that Purple Fabric AI platform allows us to rapidly build out expert AI agents to do things that were always assumed would be things that humans would have to do. For example, at my previous career, we used to have this amazing set of individuals with over 30 years on average of experience of just issuing policies. They were so good at issuing policies. Now, you would imagine, why would you need an army of people to issue policies? Well, you do, because in the middle market space and in the larger commercial space that I used to operate in or where I grew up, there's always a difference between what the final proposal looks like and what the policy needs to look like. There's a lot of reconciliation. There's a lot of backing into, because as an underwriter, I'm sitting there, I'm evaluating the risk, I'm on the phone with the broker, and after 17 conversations, we say, all right, fine, let's do it at $930,000, right? All 6 lines, $930,000, and the broker says, you will not regret this, right? Perfect. Their target was 950, you're at 930, it's a deal. Now, who's going to figure out all the credits and all the things that have to be applied to back into that price because the quote was rated at 1.5 million, right? So you have humans who figure out, they understand what are the levers that you can pull to sometimes back into a premium like that. And this is an industry standard. I'm not talking about 1 or 2 carriers here and there. That is something that AI can do. For 100 years, we haven't thought that way, but it is something that only generative AI can now do, because it can look at all these possible levers. It can learn from all the policies that you have issued before that. It has knowledge of all the proposals that you have put out there in the past 4 years. If you want to train it on that kind of data, or tune the AI on these parameters, and then give it guidelines through a RAG mechanism, and then ask it to run and explain its steps using something like React, or a chain of thought to say, what are you going to do? Well, I'm going to go easy on workers' comp because workers' comp is highly regulated, so I'm going to not take my chances there. But I have quite a few E&O, D&O type exposure, so on those policies, I can probably do a few things here and there. GL looks really, really good, so I'm going to use some good modifiers there. So things that a human with 30 years of experience can do, I think is something that Gen AI can do. So these are the type of the expert agents that we've been envisioning. We just created one expert agent for helping underwriters with coming up with their plan for the next week. Now you would say, well, what does that mean, right? Well, when I was an underwriter, I used to spend my Sunday evenings, rather than playing with my kid, I used to spend my Sunday evenings planning my week, because I had my broker conversations, and I would get one meeting with my key brokers once a quarter. So I wanted to be prepared to ensure that I use their time very effectively. I talk about the accounts that I need to talk to them about. If brokers hate surprises, right? Most professionals do. So if there are renewal actions that I need to take, if there's a rate that I need to take, I need to tell them way in advance and saying, look, this is trending in a certain way, and I want you not to be surprised, but I'm going to need somewhere between 14 and 20% rate on these accounts. So the broker can prepare themselves and say, okay, in that case, I'm going to market the account, which is fine. What are the product changes that you've made? Where do you have more capacity and more appetite now? And you need to tell Bob, when you meet Bob, I have more capacity for janitorial services now. How do you remember all that? You have to spend time, right? In my case, I used to spend anywhere between 4 to 6 hours, if not 8 hours, trying to prep for my meetings. I gave that problem to my engineers the other day, and within a matter of 2 weeks, they actually built an expert agent that goes and connects into my calendar, understands what my meetings are, goes into the underwriting workbench, fetches all the information from there, goes into the CRM system, fetches all the information from there, and creates a succinct report saying, you're going to meet this person on this date at this time. These are the things that you need to talk about. You're going to meet this person from this brokerage. These are the things that you need to talk about. Like, where was this when I needed it 6 years ago? So that is the power of expert AI agents, right? So for us, Gen AI isn't a fad. It isn't a chat GPT 3.5 API that we just hook into the system and say, we are Gen AI compliant now. No, for us, it is truly something that we've incorporated into our design. It has become a first principles thinking mechanism for us, and is very intrinsic to almost everything that we do in our insurance space.
Fantastic. What is magic placement?
Magic placement is one of our newest products, and it is something that we expect to have an amazing reception with, especially with wholesalers and brokers. But magic placement is a product that we have launched for comparing and contrasting documents, right? So things that bring broker E&O into the, or agent E&O into the play. So does your quote match your binder? Does the binder match the policy? And what is the difference between the current policy and the expiring policy? What has changed? These are the questions that the broker is asked whenever they finish a transaction. And that is something that is done very manually today by people, either inside the brokerage or inside the wholesale shop, or it is done somewhere offshore. Magic placement is the product that uses generative AI and our knowledge of insurance and how clauses work to really create a simple comparison of the 60 things that you care about. Just give us what that list is by line of business, and we'll tell you what the binder says and what the policy says, and gives you side by side and tells you whether it matches or not. So something that takes a broker hours to scour through 90, 100 pages of a policy and compare it with what was in the binder or in the quote now takes approximately 34 minutes.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I've never been a broker, but yes.
No, I mean, it really is a small mistake, right? One exclusion that is on the policy that was unintended, right? The underwriter did not intend it, but something happened in translation, and it was in there, and which means that there's no coverage for a certain claim. When that claim happens, and the insured feels that they're not being indemnified in the right way, it might sit on the broker, right? And some of these large brokers have a lot of that exposure that that could be created. So we think this is a product that will be very well accepted in the marketplace. There are some AI enabled systems out there, but they are all very traditional AI. This is truly something that uses generative AI in a specific way, and just well, folks say, oh, you know, we can, why can't I just upload it into Chat GPT and ask the questions that I need to ask? Like, what's the big deal, right? I have a very similar reaction where I smile and I say, well, let me show you what we had to do, right? The number of problems that we had to solve through engineering around the LLMs to just, for example, fix the reading order. Sometimes you have policies that have two columns, right? How do you fix the reading order, and how do, like, one problem after another, like that movie Martian, right? You solve one math problem after another math problem, and you solve enough math problems one day that you earn the right to come back home. we had to take an approach like that, where we had to solve a number of problems through engineering because the LLMs have not been tuned for insurance language.
Exciting. So often I ask about the origin story. But you guys, case you guys been around for a long time. what I'm really curious about, after 15 years at a fantastic carrier and lots of growth at that one carrier, uh, when you decided that it was time to go elsewhere, how did you choose out of the many vendors? How did you choose IntellectAI?
That is again a very, very awesome question. The carrier that I used to work for did such an amazing job bringing me up, right? Like I literally grew up there, and it was such an amazing workplace to be at when you're, especially when you're starting your career and you need the support that you need in the middle of your career. I was blessed with just amazing bosses who always took care of me. The That is an organization that I can say for sure has its heart in the right place. That it's just such a wonderful organization to be a part of. So leaving was never an easy decision. But and to your point, when you are ready to walk out of an organization that you were working for 15 years, but I actually was associated with them even before. In my earlier role at a different company, I was working as a contractor for them. So I count 19 years that I had worked at that organization. So it was a very difficult choice, and there were many choices. But for me, it was a bit easier because I was a customer of Intellect for 3 years. So I had seen them in action. When I was a VP of digital transformation at my previous employer, I played a role in bringing onboarding this vendor and then giving them very tough challenges and very difficult problems to solve, because back then there weren't many companies who were trying to read submission documents or were trying to be third-party data aggregators, and were truly applying AI in a way AI needed to be applied. And I'm not talking about like, oh, 30 years ago. This is quite literally, I want to say 7 years ago, right? The bigger carriers had their own AI shops, and which is why most vendors were not necessarily in this space. But Intellect was always forward thinking, and I saw them in action for almost 3 years. I threw some of the most difficult problems that I could think of at them. I saw their ability to solve them through sheer intelligence and engineering brain power. And so when that was offered as an alternative, it took me about 10 seconds to say yes.
Fantastic. I love that story. Absolutely love those stories. Sandeep, thank you so much for your time today. This has been super interesting. Hope to run into you out in the conference circuit in the fall. Be sure to connect, or whatever other conferences. I'm very easy to find wearing my top hat.
You're never difficult to find. Yeah, I know exactly where to find. I could be 100 meters away, but I would notice you. So no, I'm really looking forward to connecting with you again in person at one of these events. And thank you for this opportunity to be on
Absolutely,
this.
my pleasure. Thank you.
I always follow this, so it's a pleasure. Right? Thank you.